Welcome back to the garage, everybody. I am super excited about today's video. You see, I just got myself a new air compressor and it's awesome. The only problem is that it's also really big and really loud, so I can't really keep it here inside my garage. So I keep it in here. This is a tiny room in a building right next to my garage. So today's project is to get the compressed air from here to here. Let me just grab a piece of paper and I'll show you how this will work. So this right here is my garage. And this is my workbench where I'm standing right now. Right next to my garage there is another building. Right here is my woodworking shop. And right behind this wall is the little room where I keep my compressor. Right here. So the idea is to have a main air line running from this room through the wall, running all the way to the other side, through the wall again and into the garage. Starting out, I will have two drops. One here in the wood shop and one here in the garage. I will make the whole system out of PEX tubing because it's cheap, easy to work with, and you can pick it up like everywhere. The main line will be 22 millimeters thick. That's about 7/8 of an inch. And the drops will be 15 millimeters, and that's about 5/8 of an inch. I think that should be plenty for my use case. I intend to show you every little piece I use to make this system work. I will also present the total cost at the end of the video, just to make it super easy for you to make your own system in your garage. Alright, enough talking. Let's drill some holes in some walls. I will start out by using this obnoxiously long drill to make a pilot hole, just to make sure that I get the hole in the right location. I will then drill it out to final size using a spade bit. And for anyone wondering where we are right now, we are right here. We're going to drill through this wall. Must see what it looks like from the other side. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with that location. Let's switch to the other drill. There we go. Well, I'm pretty happy with the placement right there, and I actually think it's time to add our first connector. Let me grab one and I'll show you. This is the kind of connector I will be using. And I like it because it doesn't require any special tools. It consists of 4 parts. The actual connector, a nut, a support socket, and a clamp ring. And it's really simple to use. Take the pipe through the nut and through the clamp ring. Put the support socket inside the pipe and put the whole assembly into the connector. Make sure you put it all the way in. And then you screw on the nut by hand until it's snug. And finally you use a wrench to make it really tight. Make sure to read instructions so you don't over tighten them. These specific connectors are only supposed to get 1 1/4 turn with the wrench. To connect this to the compressor, I'm gonna use a regular 1/2 inch air hose. And I will connect it using this. But this thread right here is 3/4 of an inch and this one is only 1/2 inch. So I'm going to use this adapter to bring the thread size down. Whenever you're attaching 2 metal threads together, you always need to seal them in some way. I will use this Teflon tape. Always remember to put on the nut first. That should be good enough for rock and roll. Let's continue on the other side. Alright, I'm back at the other side and now I want to have the pipe move from here all the way to... over here. And this is where we will have our first drop. Let me take it down. To cut the pipe, I'm using this special tool, and it's specifically made to cut plastic tubing. It might seem like a luxury item, but it was only 10 bucks, and I definitely think it's worth that. Up like that. You just clamp the tubing inside the jaws. Spin it around. And it actually leaves a pretty nice edge as well. Now I'm going to add this T connection. It has two 22mm and a 50mm in the bottom. It works exactly the same as the other connection, so I'll just go ahead and put it on. The T connection is in place, and I actually went ahead and drilled a hole in the second wall and pulled the pipe through and connected that as well. The reason I'm doing all the connections before I attach it to the wall is because it's a lot easier to make the connections down here on the floor than up there in the ceiling. And with that in mind, I actually want to do this connection as well while we have it on the ground, and that's for the drop. So let's go ahead and prepare that. But before I show you how I will make those drops, I want to touch on something that is really important to take into consideration when you are designing your air system. And that is water. Whenever you are compressing air, there will be water. And that water will be in your tank and in your airlines. The water in the tank we will deal with later. And the water in the airlines isn't a huge problem for us since we are running PEX. And PEX is made out of plastic and it won't rust. But what we do have to worry about is water getting into our tools. And to avoid that, I will use one of these. This is a regulator with a built-in filter. So all the water will be collected in here and I could drain it at the bottom. I actually had kind of a hard time finding a regulator that fitted my needs, and I actually only had 3 needs. I wanted it to have a 1/2 inch inlet, I wanted it to have a way of draining water, and I didn't want it to be super expensive. And this one from Viver actually fit all of those 3 requirements. And no, this is not sponsored. I paid for this with my own money. But I actually think it looks pretty decent. The only thing I don't like about it is the connectors it comes with. They're actually made out of plastic. But that doesn't really matter to me because I will use some other connectors. And to hook it up to the PEX system, I will use this bend. It will thread right into the regulator and accept a 50mm pipe on top. Should be quite easy. With this drop line in place, we can actually start putting stuff on the wall. To do that, I will use these cable clamps. They are actually meant to be used with electrical cable, but it actually works fine with PEX as well. It's a new day and a new t-shirt, and everything actually went really well yesterday until I got to this point, where the pipe goes through the wall and into the garage. I already knew that it's impossible to make perfect 90-degree bends with PEX pipes, but for some reason I decided to neglect that knowledge and I ended up with this. And it just looks way too bad. So this morning I went out and picked up a few of these 90-degree bends. I'll put one of them up there and it should look way better. That already looks way better, and now I can finally continue on the other side of the wall. for the final piece of the puzzle, I'm putting in these air connectors from Sane. Sane is a Swedish company and these are actually made in Sweden. These particular connectors are from their eSafe line and they actually have a special trick up their sleeve. Have you ever had your hose or tool just fly away when you deattach it? Well, that won't happen with these connectors, because they actually release the pressure before it allows you to remove your tool. You pull the sleeve backwards, as you would with any other connector, and when you do that, it lets all the air out. But you still can't remove your tool. You actually have to pull the connector back out again, and then you can remove the tool. I think that's really clever, and I'm actually replacing all my connectors with these, even on my hoses. Well, with those last pieces in place, I think it's time to put some pressure into this system. Alright, let's see. Grab this hose and I connect it right here. I grab the other end, connect it into the compressor. Now we should be able to start it. Let me just grab some air protection. This compressor gets quite loud. Well, there we go. I think we'll start with a pressure of 4 bar. Well, let's head back to the garage and see if it's working. Alright, let's see what kind of pressure we're getting. I'm getting like 3.5 bars, and I think that is alright considering we have a pretty long run here. Well, let's plug in this reel here. Let's see what pressure we're getting here. Well, it's right around 3 bars. But it's working. Let's give it a little more pressure. The pressure has actually dropped to around 2 bar. Let's raise it up to 4 again. Right, let's see. Let's see. Yes, now we are getting 4 bars. And 4 bars at the air gun. It's working pretty well. My goal is to have 8 bars at the business end of this hose. And the PEX and the regulators and the compressor, they can handle 10 bars, so it shouldn't be a problem. And most of the tools I'm using are only using like 6 or 7 bar. So 8 bar is plenty. Let's see. Let's see. Why am I still running around with these? Let's crank this. We're at 6 bar. All right. Well, I'm at 8 bars at the business end. I'm happy with that. Before I get into the costs and my final thoughts about this system, let's do a full rundown. Alright, we start here by the compressor, and I'm sorry if this footage will be a little shaky. Here's the hose going from the regulator into the PEX piping. I will make this hose shorter later. And just as a reminder, this is a 1/2 inch air connector going into a 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch adapter. And that 3/4 then goes into the PEX piping. And the PEX piping runs up against the wall, in the ceiling, all the way over there and into this room. Then it runs along the ceiling to this T-joint over here. And from that T-joint we have a 15mm pipe going down, goes into a bend that has a 1/2 inch thread on it that goes straight into the regulator. The line then continues against the ceiling all the way over here. This is a 90-degree bend that goes through to this 90-degree bend that goes into another T-joint. And this is a bit special because I actually put a plug on the end. And that is just so if I in the future want to extend this system, I easily can. From that T-joint we go down all the way to this regulator. And before I forget, I just quickly want to show you this. It's an automatic mechanical drainage doohickey that you put underneath your air tank, and it will get rid of all the moisture that's inside your tank automatically. Pretty sweet. Alright, let's talk cost. The PEX piping was only available in lengths of 10, 25 or 50 meters. So I ended up getting 25 meters of 22mm PEX for $70 and 10 meters of 15mm PEX for $30. And for the connectors I spent about $100. And I guess you can go a bit cheaper here, but go for quality, you won't regret it. And the regulators were $70 for 2. And for special tools I only really had to get one, and it was $10, but I marked it up to $15. Maybe you need some Teflon tape and stuff like that. And that gives me a total of $285. And I actually think that is pretty reasonable. I haven't seen a ready-made kit at this price point that includes as thick of an airlines as this. And it's also quite easy and cheap to extend it later. And I actually got a huge amount of pipe left over, so it's really only the connectors and the regulators that would add to the price of extending the system. That's pretty nice. So would I recommend anyone wanting to build an air system for themselves to use PEX? Honestly, I totally would. And even though the 22mm PEX can be quite the hurdle to work with, it's pretty stiff. Once you get it in place, it actually stays in place. And if you factor in the costs, well, it's kind of a no-brainer. And these connectors, they were reasonably easy to work with. They were quite tough to tighten, but once you got them tight, they were tight. I actually only had one single leak in the whole system, and that was between two metal connectors. I tried to redo it like 4 times with Teflon tape, but it just wouldn't seal. So in the end I ended up using what I think is called plumber's flax. It's some kind of a hemp, and it worked a treat. And a quick tip, use soap and water to find your leaks. It works every time. Well, that's all I had for you today, and let me know if you want to see more of these garage upgrade kind of videos. I promise you there will be more shopper videos soon. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye!